In this CineGuru tutorial, we're going to take a closer look at Cine-trigger zones. Now, I've used these in most of the tutorials so far, but I haven't actually gone into how they work and the different ways they can be used. So here is an example that I've set up. This started off life as the Bob and Jane example map that comes with CineGuru, which is a simple scene with two actors that move between these 2 points and say a few lines of dialogue. But I've added in some camera positions, and there's also a credits trigger over here, and I'm going to show you how you can use Cine-trigger zones to trigger all of these in turn, and some of them can be triggered at the same time. So first off, let's start by adding in a Cine-trigger zone, and we'll drop that down there. Now, in most of the tutorials that I've done so far, I've been going into properties, and I've been naming this zone camera, and then the first name of the name of the first camera in our sequence, which in this case is BAJ1. So that's Bob and Jane 1, and that's how you can trigger cameras with the Cine-trigger zone. So you name it camera, comma, and then the name of the first camera. So if we go into test game and I run into that zone, you'll see that the camera positions start triggering straight away, and we have a little sequence here of 5 different shots. But so far, not a lot's happening in them. The actors are just stood pretty still, and that's because the actors haven't been triggered. So I'll come out of that. So in some of the other tutorials to do with actors, I've been using the actor command, and I've been typing in actor, comma, and then the path to the action script that is triggered for this scene, which in this case is CineGuru / example. Let me just double check that. Always good to check. Actions. Okay, so it's just literally called actions. Okay. So if we call this zone actor, comma, CineGuru / action, or is it actions? It was actions. Got to be careful with these things. Got to get the file name just right. There we go. Okay, so if I now go into test game and run this, we will get our little cinematic sequence that has been scripted.
General, there's a problem in Sector 34. The main door won't unlock for any personnel.
That's a door down the hall, isn't it?
Yes, the big red one on the left.
You can have my key, if I could find it.
And of course we can move around and go about our business. But what we really want to do is trigger both of these things at the same time. So we want to be able to trigger the cameras and the actors. And we can. There is a command for the Cine-trigger zone called both. And that's designed to trigger both actors and cameras at the same time. So all we have to do is swap this word out, actor, for the word both. So the name of this zone is now both, comma, CineGuru / actions. Now this does present a bit of a problem because our first camera over here is called badge 1. And that doesn't match the name of the zone that's going to trigger it. So what we actually need to do is rename this camera to the name of the action text that's going to get triggered. And it's got to be the full path to the action text as well. So we've got to rename our camera CineGuru / actions. And this particular camera also has an endpoint. So we need to go to the endpoint, which is here, I think, currently called badge 1 endpoint, and rename that to CineGuru / actions _endpoint. And by naming that camera the same as the path to the action text, CineGuru will trigger both of those at the same time. So now when we enter our trigger zone, our Cine-trigger zone, we'll get a full sequence.
General, there's a problem in Sector 34. The main door won't unlock for any personnel.
That's a door down the hall, isn't it?
Yes, the big red one on the left.
You can have my key, if I could find it.
Okay, pretty cool stuff. So those are 3 commands that you can use with Cine-trigger zones. You can use camera to trigger just cameras, actor to trigger just actors, or both to trigger both actors and cameras. There's also another command which is credits, and credits will trigger a credits trigger. So we'll go over credits triggers in more detail in another tutorial, but for now all you need to know is that the syntax for that file name has to be, or for that entity name has to be credits, comma, then a scene name, and we'll just call it scene 1 to be easy, and then you can also add in a delay. We'll add in a delay of just 100 milliseconds, something that's pretty imperceptible, and apply changes. Now if we come over to our credits trigger, and we will go over this in a future tutorial, we've named this credits trigger scene 1. So as we enter this zone, the credits trigger will trigger, but only the credits will trigger. So we'll get the scrolling text, but we won't get anything else. So if I go into test game, there won't be any kind of camera positions or anything like that. The actors won't do their thing. We'll just go in, and there you go. You can see the text scrolling up like that, and we can continue running around the world. Now, I suppose that could be useful for some instances, but most people are going to want to try and trigger a camera for that. Unfortunately, the both command doesn't work for credits and for cameras. So if you actually wanted to trigger a camera at the same time as some scrolling credits, you'd actually need to drop in another trigger zone, which is what we'll do now. So we'll drop in a second trigger zone, and this time we'll call it camera, and the name of our camera is credits cam. In fact, it might just be called credit cam. I might have to go and check that. But I've got this little high camera position up here looking down. Yeah, credit cam. It's a 21-second shot, quite a wide angle. So camera, comma, credit cam will trigger that camera, and we will place it in exactly the same place. And so you've effectively got 2 Cine-trigger zones, one on top of one another. And when we go into those zones, it'll trigger the camera and the credits at the same time, and you'll see the credits are now scrolling up, which is a little bit more cinematic. And in a future tutorial we'll have a look at Cine-trigger entities, which work in a very similar way but are slightly more interesting, and we'll get into that next time.